Welcome to SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm your host, Susie St. Angelo, and thanks for being here. Today's episode is called Why Should I Use Feng Shui in My Home? And my guest today is Karen McCormick, a Feng Shui consultant and Reiki specialist. I actually reached out to Karen on Instagram because I really didn't know anyone who did Feng Shui. Her passion for Feng Shui began about 5 years ago after the pandemic, and she had a profound shift in her home. She was amazed at how, after working with a Feng Shui expert, how simple adjustments transformed her space into a calm environment. And what I know about Karen is she's always learning and growing through her experiences with working with others. So I hope you'll stay tuned and listen to this fascinating conversation. This podcast is for you if you know you want to change something. Maybe it's your career, your health, or another aspect of your life. And you might wonder if this is the right age or stage in life to make a change. And you don't know where or how to start. Or maybe you're that person afraid to take that next step, caught in analysis paralysis. I see and I understand, and I used to feel the same way. But just stay tuned because every episode will offer you just one or two small steps on how to move forward in your life. Trust me, I know because I have made a lot of small steps over the course of the last 10 years. So just a quick reminder, you can find this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, iHeart, Apple, and Amazon platforms. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get into today's episode and meet my guest, Karen McCormick. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hi, Susie. I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm really excited to be here and share with everyone listening.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to have you on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. And I talk a lot about all the things that contribute to our health. It's not just diet and exercise. And one of those is our home environment. And so I want to find out a little bit about you and your background and how you got into Feng Shui.
My name's Karen McCormick. I'm a certified Feng Shui consultant and Reiki practitioner. I did start off with that. I worked in investment banking, where I met my husband. And then 17 years ago, we moved from the UK to the US for his work. And I now live kind of halfway between New York and Boston. And I really got into Feng Shui really by accident. And it was really kind of during COVID. All of a sudden, I had my daughter finishing high school in our dining room and my husband working from our home office. And our house just felt really heavy and sticky and a bit ugh. And I think a lot of it was the fact we were all suddenly confined together as everyone was in COVID. And I'm very grateful for that special family time that we kind of had at that point. But the house just, I think it just was overstuffed with having everyone there. So I was moaning to a friend. I'd been doing a bit of a spring clean, and so I was trying to get rid of some of the books and games and things that were kind of building up in the house. And she said, "You need to speak to my Feng Shui consultant." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so." Very skeptical. And I instantly kind of thought of very white glass kind of house with minimalist, nothing in it, lots of incense, lots of crystals and kind of chanting music and things. And I said to her, "I know that's really not for me." And she said, "You should really give it a try." So I met with a Feng Shui consultant and she explained really clearly that what Feng Shui predominantly is working with and bringing balance and harmony between you and the space you're living in. And that resonated with me. I was still quite skeptical and I had the analysis and she sent me like a list of things to do, which I did slowly. And it was almost like our house sort of took this massive inhale. And then as it exhaled, things just began to release. And I'd kind of hit this thing where things kept going wrong. Little things like the washing machine leaked, the dishwasher stopped working. One of the lights went out. They were all small things, but getting anything sorted out and moving things along just felt really hard and really I kept hitting obstacles. And when I did the Feng Shui remedies, things just started to shift a little bit, and then things began to flow, and things I've been struggling with, an answer appeared, or someone suggested something and it worked. And my husband and daughter probably still are quite skeptical, but I think we all felt that sort of shift in the energy in the house, and it just kind of became calmer and more balanced. So I was then really hooked, and I wanted to know more. So I read a lot. I watched a lot of content. I did a course. I've done some workshops. I'm still learning. I think that's the thing I've realized with anything to do with sort of energy and your home. I'm still learning. I'm still finding out things. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into Feng Shui and how it kind of started for me.
And so you've kind of talked a little bit about what Feng Shui is. For someone who might be skeptical and listening or watching this, tell them what you do as a Feng Shui consultant.
So I start with your home, and it doesn't have to be a house. It can be a workspace. I've actually just done analysis on a shop, which was really interesting. That's quite different with the sort of people coming in and out. So with your home, what I start with is I look at the practical and the energetic layers of your home. So if you think about your home, your location of your home is unique. Where your house is situated is unique to another home. So it has its own energetic imprint. And that's influenced by a number of things. So if you live like in a city, you're living in an apartment in a city, or you're living in a house in the countryside, living on a busy road, a quiet road, a small town, a large town, all of these things are going to impact the energy in your home and how the energy is coming into your home. So we look at that. And then I look at who's actually living in the house. And what you're using the house for. So if you've got, a young family and you've got 3 small children, the energy is going to be very different in your home compared to my home where I'm now. It's just myself and the dog, and my husband comes home at the weekends. So it's about that balance first. And then I use the method of Feng Shui I use is called flying stars. And this applies a sort of yearly shifting energy cycle. So what we do is I take the floor plan of your home and we divide that up into 9 equal areas. And each of those areas represent a different part of your life. So let's start with the center. And that literally is the center of your home. So you can just go and stand in the middle of your home, and that is the center. And that area in Feng Shui represents your health. It's your physical and mental health, your well-being, self-acceptance, all of that kind of part of your life. And then you have the 8 areas surrounding that. And in flying stars, these are represented by the compass. So you've got north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest. So each of those areas represent a different life sort of focus. And then what we do to balance the energy, once I look at the map of your floor plan, and I've got that energetic map, I apply the principles of the flying stars Feng Shui, and that shows me where the energy is flowing, where it might be getting stuck, where you might be getting like negative energy building up. And sometimes you have like a really strong flow of energy into an area. And if that's like going in somewhere that's a quieter area of your home, like your bedroom or your study, you might want to soften that energy. Whereas somewhere like the kitchen, if there's a very quiet energy, you might want to boost that energy a little bit. And what we do is I come up with a list of remedies. And it all sounds really complicated, but it's very straightforward. The remedies are just little tiny things, and they represent the 5 elements. So water, wood, earth, metal, and fire. So like for a fire element, we might just add a little bit of orange or red or purple colours. For wood, we could add like a plant or something green. And for earth, I like earth because you can have like stone. I've got a really nice stone bowl as an earth remedy, or a terracotta pot, or some crystals. So there's lots of things that you can then kind of add. And by putting those remedies in those specific areas for that yearly cycle, that helps balance and restore the energy. And that is then what gives you that kind of nice base of support in your home and that flow of ease. So that's kind of what I do.
And how long does that process take from the time someone reaches out to you to the time, let's say they book an appointment with you, and they can book an appointment either in person or virtual, correct?
Yeah, I've got an online, the online booking service is something I have just started working with. So I'm not very technologically fantastic, but it is now working and it is up there. But people can always reach out to me. I'm happy to, if you email me. So what I normally do is once someone's booked in for an analysis, we have like an onboarding call. So we have a call and talk about what they want from the Feng Shui analysis. The most important part of Feng Shui, I think, is your intention. I can give someone a list and they can go and put the things in their house and tick the box and be done. But I really think, and that will shift the energy. Anything you do will shift the energy. But I think what really helps boost that shift is your intention. So I always say to people, what is it you want? Is there an area of your life you really want to focus on? Or is it the overall energy in your home? So I had a client a couple of weeks ago, and she's I've worked with her for the last 2 years, and she is just applying for a promotion at work. So she really wanted to focus on how could she support the energy to be successful with this promotion. So we looked at her north area, which is business, career, and life's journey. So we've placed an intention, a written intention in that area for the job. And then we've put with that her resume and also the application she put in for the job. So that is there as that kind of energetic reminder that that's what we're trying to bring in. So I would say if I've had the onboarding call, which I normally last for 45 minutes to an hour, I then send you a form requesting some information that I'll need, your address, details about the house, a floor plan. It doesn't have to be like an official floor plan. It can just be a hand drawn out floor plan. And then with those questions and some idea of what's happened to the house, when the house was built, if you've done any renovations, all these things impact the energy. And then once I've got that full story, I would say I normally aim to get analysis back to clients within 2 weeks. And then it's up to them in terms of process, how long they want to spend putting everything together. I think I had my analysis in like a March, and I had everything in place by the August. I really took my time and really focused on each area as I went round, because I didn't really want to just do it all in one go. And I didn't have the time to do it all in one go.
Do you find that people are like that? They take their time, or are there people that just jump right in and they follow up with you and say, "I got it done"?
It's a mix. I mean, I had someone who was just like super enthusiastic, and she was very focused on, I want to get this done. I want to get this done in 2 weeks. And I think you can do that. And I think the thing I always say to people is Feng Shui, like I said, it's not really a to-do list done. It's the maintenance things, and it's keeping things moving around and then revisiting things. Because as you put your intentions in place and then things come to fruition, obviously then you're on to the next thing. What do you then want to focus on? And so it's an ongoing process. And I offer like follow-up calls and sessions for people who, want to then come back and revisit things.
Oh, good to know.
It's important. So it's an ongoing thing, not just like a one and done.
One and done. Yeah, I like that. Well, it's interesting. When I sold a property over a year ago, the realtor brought in a consultant who does your space, and they tell you what you need to pack up. So it doesn't come from the realtor, it comes from the consultant, one. And two, they give you this list and they send it to you in email. And I was like a dog with a bone. I just took it and I wanted it done fast. I didn't want to delay. I wanted to get my house listed. But it certainly did change the energy when I started boxing up, and my house was not cluttered, but it certainly showed better. And, the walkthrough and all the different things, years ago, they would say either put some, light a cinnamon candle or have something burning on your stove, or bake cookies before, which I've done that and left them for the people to enjoy, so the place smelled good. And it reminds me, Feng Shui reminds me a little bit of that, and how, taking some things out and shifting that can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, very much so. And I think with selling a house, I think the thing we forget is our houses are very personal. I mean, we have energy, our houses have energy, and we create our house in the image of what we want. And when someone comes into your home, that's really what they're encountering, that your energetic imprint and the house and that reflection. And I think I always say to people when they're selling their house, if you remove the really personal things, you don't want someone really feeling that energy. You want them walking in and feeling that they can put their own print onto that. So, I think that the personal things, I mean, you can see from behind me, I have things. I'm not a minimalist. I like my belongings, but I think it's really important that those belongings are things that really resonate with you and align with what you are trying to grow, bring in, attract into your life. And I think that's a big part of the process.
Yeah, that is a big part of the process. And then let me go to the next step would be, you're buying someone else's property. And that to me presents a wonderful opportunity for your services to come in and say, okay, we have a blank slate here. What can we do to make this personal and set the intention in this new space?
Yeah, I've been working with a lady she's just moved. So we did like a little ritual to kind of, in effect, say thank you to the home she'd been in, and then to kind of transfer that energy and the good memories and the things into her new home. And I think that's all. I might always say to my clients, your intention is really the thing that is going to make the difference. The energy, as I said, will shift. If you move your sofa by an inch, and the dining room table by an inch and the chairs around it, that shifts the energy, it stirs it up. But the intention behind it, I really think, is where the magic happens. And I think if you're buying a new house, I always say to people, you want to make sure the house is really nice and clean when you move in. You energetically want to clean it. And you can do that as a number of ways. You can use a candle or incense. You can, if you like sage smoke, you can sage smudge. You can buy really good sage sprays if you don't want the smoke. Music is a great way to shift energy. Uplifting music played in a house, that will really shift the energy. Clapping your hands, turning on some lights, that attracts the energy. So there's lots of ways you can stir up the energy and attract energy. But I really think, it is your intention behind what you are doing that really does make the difference. And it's very easy to kind of pick an area. I always say to clients, if you're unsure, let's pick an area. Let's start with, and the center's a good area because the center of your home is really the energetic hub where all the energy for the rest of your home radiates out from. So if you start with the center, and that's your health, and most people, that's a pretty common thing people are interested in kind of supporting. But if you start with that center area and just give it a little physical clean, an energetic clean, and then really think about what you've got in that area, that will shift the energy, and that gives you a nice starting point to see how it feels. And from there, you can then say, okay, I'd now like to work on my career area, or wealth area is really popular. I get that one a lot. Wealth area, family, love and relationships. It's very easy to then kind of move around. But I like a slightly slow approach to things because I think it gives you time to kind of let it ruminate and kind of things come up a little bit. But then at the same time, if you want to do the whole process in 2 weeks, that's fine. And I always offer a follow-up call when people have had the analysis and they've had time to go through the questions. One of my packages, you can email me, WhatsApp message me. It's a supported process.
Yeah, it sounds very supportive. Yeah, you're walking alongside of them as they go through this.
And I don't take on too many clients at one time because I want it to be personal and that support available. And I'm really conscious that, if you're too busy, that isn't something you can then really offer in the same way.
Well, yeah, it's your energy too.
Yes. Very much.
So what are the most common Feng Shui mistakes people make in their homes?
Most common Feng Shui mistakes? That's an excellent question. I think clutter. I do think clutter and not seeing the clutter. And I'm guilty of this. Or I think we all have that little sticky space in our home where the things just accumulate. Mine's the top of the stairs. Outside my daughter's bedroom, there's a bookshelf, and that's where, and I know there's about 4 things sat there that have been sat there for the last week, but it's the clutter, and it's not really seeing the clutter. Really, with Feng Shui, you want the energy to be coming into your home, circulating all the way around your home, releasing anything blocked, picking up anything negative, and then leaving. And anything you have got that is, in effect, an obstacle, and that's clutter, that is stopping that happening. And I think we get very used to, and I'm bad for this too, but like my Amazon boxes come and they sit by the back door. We come in, and not so much now, but when my daughter was at school, they'd have the school bag, the shoes, the lunch bag, and it just kind of all gets dumped. And that is all obstacles for that energy. So I really think it is about decluttering. And I know that's not a very attractive thing to want to be doing. But I think it's really assessing what we have got in our home. And I think that is the thing that if you declutter, that will make the biggest difference to the energy.
One of the ladies I've talked to on my podcast, I used to work with her in the banking business, and she was in HR, and she started a service. Her sister also does something similar in another state, but she helps people downsize. A lot of times it's seniors who are moving from a house to maybe an apartment or to an assisted living facility. And, they have things that, it's tough to go through at the end of the day. But, she likes to say, okay, these are keep and take with us. These are donate. These are, consign and try to sell. These are, give away to family members and things like that. So she's does it with compassion. And she's a really kind of a therapist along the way, too, because it is a little tightrope walk, getting rid of some of that clutter.
It's our history, isn't it? It's all the things we are. And I was talking to someone the other day, and she was saying, that she ends up with things that people don't want to part with, family, but they don't want it in their house, but they don't want to part with it. So they kind of park it with her. I said to her, I think it's very difficult to get rid of something that, especially somebody else's thing. But if they really don't want it in their house, do you really want it in your house? Do you really need to hold on to that thing for them? And it's a very difficult thing to do, but really. And I think that is the deeper question. And it does come down to, I found in a box in the basement, I said at the beginning, I moved from the UK to the US, and I've got a box in the basement that I have not unpacked. Now, whatever is in that box, Susie, I've not touched that for 17 years. I cannot need it, can I? I don't even know what's in there. But there's that, but if it is, and it's like, I don't even know what it is. So I moved it out the other day, and I've got no idea what it was in there. But I think it's really hard to part with things. And I read this, and I think it's quite a good way of doing it. If you have something and you're kind of on the fence about whether you want to let it go or not, I box it up. I put it in a box, and I put it either in the basement, or if it's not something that I'm worried about getting slightly damp, I put it in the shed. And then I put a note in my diary for like 2 or 3 months later. If in 2 or 3 months I'm really missing it, or I'm desperate to have it back in the house, I find it a new space. Otherwise, I let it go. And I think that distance, but I think it's really hard when people give you things to look after.
My friend was helping her father, who at the time was in his 90s. He lived to be 100, and he was so nervous about getting rid of things. And she said, here's the deal. I'm going to put it in a box, and anytime you want it, I will have it for you. And if, after a year, you haven't touched it, we'll get rid of it then. And that really worked well. And he, of course he didn't need it, but it was, it was a nice, gentle way to transition those things. Let me ask you this question. How can someone improve the energy in their home without spending a lot of money?
That's a great question. I always say to people, there are 3 things you can do. You can physically clean your home. You can declutter. And then it's really about getting the energy circulating around your home. And there are lots of ways you can do this. Like I said, playing music, turning lights on, especially if there's a dark space, or if there's a space that maybe you don't use very often, like a guest bedroom or an office, or I've got my teenage daughter, she's not even a teenager anymore, my young adult daughter's bedroom, I open the door sometimes. It's just about kind of stirring up that energy and letting the energy move around your home. And that is the most simple way. It's the cleaning, the letting the energy circulate, and it is the decluttering. And it's working out things like, decluttering. I think it's really important to remember that we've acquired all these things over years. We didn't just go and buy them in a weekend. So and I see a lot on Instagram of, decluttering your whole house in a weekend. I mean, it's not realistic or practical. But I think doing something small, even if it is just emptying out your wallet. So in Feng Shui, let's say your wallet represents, it's your wealth. It's the way you're treating your money. So if your wallet is stuffed full of old receipts and coupons and bits of paper and like a dead lipstick or things like that, that is energetically blocking that wealth container, which is your wallet. So emptying that out every week, putting some fresh notes in there, putting them so they all face the same way. I carry a little citrine crystal in my wallet, but writing a little affirmation into your wallet, wealth flows to me with ease. Wealth and abundance flow to me with ease. Actually being really intentional about just that small thing, that will make a difference. And that really doesn't cost, it's time.
So my ex-husband gave me a little charm. It's a silver angel, and I have kept that in my coin part of my wallet for 20 plus years.
That's lovely. That's really lovely.
I feel like it's an angel with me wherever I go, whether I'm traveling or driving, whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, really lovely. It's a lovely intention.
Mm-hmm. But I don't write anything, which I certainly could do that now. What about small spaces? The apartments and people who are living in, lofts or one big space.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, the Feng Shui, the sort of the energetic map applies regardless of how big your space is. So if you're living in an apartment, the only thing with an apartment that's slightly different is in a home, in like a house, the energy comes in through the front door. It's called the mouth of Qi. And that is where the energy and opportunities come into your home. So it's through your front door. And I get asked this question a lot. It does not matter which door you use to come in and outside your house. It is the architecturally designed front door where the energy and the opportunities come in. And I mean, we don't use our front door to come in and out of our house. It's the parking areas at the back of our house. So we go in and out the back door. But I do open the front door every day. But with an apartment, that isn't the same case. So the door that you use to come in and out of your apartment is actually, in effect, your back door. So the energy is coming into the house like from the front of the apartment. So if you've got a balcony door, that will be coming in there, or windows. So that is sort of like the architectural front of the building. But the energy does the same thing. It comes in, it circulates around. You have those same 9 areas in your apartment. It doesn't matter how big your house is. With some houses, I mean, ideally in Feng Shui, all houses are square and rectangular. Our house is not. So what I do when I do a floor plan and it's not a rectangle or square is I square it off, and then quite often there are missing pieces. So those areas of the energy map are missing. But there are remedies to fix that as well.
Really interesting. How does Feng Shui interact with our emotional or mental health?
I think that when my house feels balanced and calm, I feel balanced and calm. So I think the two things are totally interlinked. And I found last week with Thanksgiving here in the US, I had a house full. And as I said, normally it's just myself and the dog and my husband at the weekends and our daughter during college holidays. So our house is normally quite calm and balanced. And I do quite a lot to balance the energy on a sort of weekly basis. So when all of a sudden you have a load of people in the house, that definitely stirs up the energy. And I can feel, now I've done this for years, I can now feel that my energy and how much I'm grounded definitely shifts with the extra energy in the house. So when I have people to stay, once they leave, I clear the energy. I do some simple energy clearing things just to kind of put it back to where it normally is.
I think that's really important. I mean, we're recording this in December, so we're in between one holiday and the start of a couple of other holidays people celebrate. And you're right, there's people coming in that aren't normally there and leaving. And, I do think it shifts the energy in the whole space too.
Also, I think this time of year, I mean, it's winter. And in the Chinese calendar, this time it's the water element. So it's really still and quiet energy. And we should really be resting and relaxing and sort of that nourishment and restorative as we head towards spring. The Feng Shui New Year is in 4th February, 2026. So the energy is kind of shifting around to that springtime. So as we hit I think the solstice is 2 weeks away. And I mean, we should really be not doing the holiday kind of all up and up and up. It should all be a really calm, quiet, relaxed time. So I really think the other thing that you can do for yourself this time of year is, not say yes to everything, say no to a few things, get some early nights, sit and soak in the bath, have a really nice hot shower and sit and read your book and a nice hot cup of tea. Anything you can do for yourself just to kind of like really keep that energy nice and low and calm and grounded.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important too. I find it's usually really around Christmas to New Year's that it really quiets down for me personally. And I think, depends on, there's how many people you have in your house and how long they're there for. But to me, that's a very calming time. It also helps me to kind of do a review of the year and sit, in my comfortable space and kind of wind down like that. So
yeah, I think January is a great time of year as I head towards the Feng Shui New Year and that sort of energetic reset for that, then the next year's cycle. I always like to look at, what went well this year, I'm beginning to think about what my intentions and goals are for the next year as well. More than resolution. I don't really like New Year's resolutions as it feels punishing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I don't view it that way either. But the Feng Shui New Year is just a couple days after my birthday, and so I think that's really interesting too, because I do pay attention to the Chinese New Year, and I really think that my year starts off on my birthday. That's how I've always viewed it for 20 plus years.
Oh, that's so cool. That's really cool. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I firmly believe, how you start your birthday day, it can set the tone for the rest of your year.
Yeah, my birthday is January the 2nd, and it's just it's that time of year, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It sure is. Can Feng Shui help with things like sleep, relationships, or creativity?
Absolutely. It really comes down to back to intention. But in terms of sleep, for someone struggling with sleep, I would definitely say, what have you got in your bedroom? What is your bedroom setup? It's back to clutter and what you've got by your bedside table. I always say to people, if you can empty off your nightstand, give it a wipe, and then only put back the bare minimum things you really actually need. I always say that I try not to have electronics by the bed. They do disrupt your sleep. Also, if you've got things under the bed, that will also, you want the energy to be able to flow under the bed and round the bed whilst you sleep. So have you got things stored under your bed? I know space is tight. So if you do have to store things under the bed, I would recommend them be soft things like spare bedding, towels, clothes, but you really don't want anything hard, stored under your bed. And then it's kind of, I appreciate that for most people and for us, there is really only one place that our bed can go in the bedroom. And you read a lot online about the command position. But ideally, you want your bed to have a firm, solid headboard, and you want that to be against a wall. And ideally, you want to have two bedside tables that are matching. If you've got lights, you want lights both sides. It kind of gives you that protection whilst you sleep. Yeah. It's balance. And then mirrors are a bit of a tricky thing in the bedroom. So if the mirror is facing the bedroom, mirrors kind of represent, they reflect the energy and they kind of represent water energy. So that can be a bit disturbing to sleep. So if you've got a mirror facing your bed, and you think it is disturbing your sleep, you can maybe put like a sheet or something over it and just see if that makes a difference. But I mean, I appreciate that not everyone can move everything around their bedroom, but it's really about having nice, soft, neutral colors and fabrics and textures, and then really keeping the lights low and really only using your bedroom for rest, relaxation and romance. So if you work from your bedroom or you exercise in your bedroom, it's really about moving those things out and creating that sort of boundary between sleep and working.
That's those tips that you just gave are also tips that I've talked to a sleep and dream expert, and we talk about the room and keeping the room dark, keeping electronics out, just what you said, making the room specific for certain things. And so you're hitting on things that I think are really, some are just practical sense. But some of these things, they can really make a huge difference in our sleep. And but what about like relationships?
The relationship area of your home, in terms of family relationships and like friends and community, it would be the east area of your home. For love and marriage, that would be the southwest. And I mean, it's really about maybe putting intention there. I had a client a few weeks ago who was looking to start dating again. So we looked at her southwest area, and she had actually got, that had to be her office. And in her office, she'd got all her paperwork and things from her divorce and like her marriage certificate and things. And it's really about what that energy then is creating, and it's just blocking you from kind of that next step. So what we did was we moved those things out for Southwest. Obviously documents, things you need to keep, you need to keep them, but you can move them to another area. So we moved them out for Southwest, and she gave the area a clean and an energetic clean. And then we placed a really nice picture, just a generic picture of a couple walking on a beach, just to kind of open up that idea of her being open to a relationship. And she also cleared a small space in her wardrobe, just to allow that if someone else was actually going to live with her in that space, that there's actually space for someone else. If your house is full of things and you were actually wanting someone else to maybe eventually come and live with you, there needs to be space for that energetically. So we did that sort of space clearing, and she's bravely ventured onto a dating website. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, that's good advice. So are there colors or materials that are especially important, or I don't want to say lucky or unlucky, but are there?
It really comes down to where you're talking about and energetically what's happening. So, I mean, if let's say you've got a really, let's say your career and business area, you want some growth there, it may be that you'd add something sort of fire, colored. So, I always say to people, I think it's best if you can use, natural sort of materials and fibers. But colors, it really comes down to what energy you're wanting to bring in. So, I mean, for example, in a bathroom, bathrooms in Feng Shui really drain the energy and opportunities. So a good way of balancing this is to add something sort of representative of the wood element. And the wood element obviously is green. So you could add a plant, and plants in bathrooms are nice, but you could add like a green fluffy towel or a green bath mat. It really comes down to sort of energetically what you're wanting. I mean, people will say like, red is a very prosperous color in, like Feng Shui, and it can be, but if you have a lot of red, particularly like at Christmas, if you have a Christmas tree and it is full of red colored baubles, that is a lot of fire energy. So if then that's feeling a little bit intense and it's kind of a little argumentative and a bit tricky around the Christmas tree, it could be the red. So it's about balance.
So what about a bathroom? If your bathrooms don't have windows, what can you do as far as greenery? Can you get a plant that it's not live, or a plant that requires just artificial light?
I think you can get plants that kind of are very low light, but in that instance, I would recommend having some green colour. You can even I've got a picture of a woodland in my daughter's bathroom. It doesn't have to be a live plant. I know plants in bathrooms, it's tricky. And I know ventilation and dampness and things is tricky with bathrooms.
Yeah, very good. Can you share a few success stories that you've had?
A few success stories that I've had. What success stories have I had? Personally, I would say my business, I've kind of grown my business really from word of mouth. I started out doing when I was doing my certification, I had to do 3 case studies. So I started with that. And then, friends would say, would you mind doing mine? And then I had friends of friends, and I had friends of friends of friends who I didn't know who would say. So that's kind of how my business grew. And this year, my goal was I started posting on Instagram, which was a bit of I'm not sure everyone wants to do. It's how we met. And I really wanted to build a community where I could share the things I'd learned about Feng Shui that were simple to apply, were not going to cost a lot of money, and everyone could do it and feel that they'd achieved something without the expense of analysis. So that was my goal. And I wrote down my intention for that I started it at the beginning of March, I think. And I had my intention, and it has grown way beyond my expectations. And it's been lovely being able to meet you, meet other people, help them answer questions, and just get to know people. And I'm still learning. So when someone asks me something and I don't know, I will say, I don't know, but I'll find out. And I learned something about petrified wood the other day, because I always thought petrified wood in effect was dead. So you couldn't use it as a wood remedy, but actually you can use it as a wood remedy because it is in effect still alive. But where it has sort of turned to like stone, you can also use it as an earth remedy. So I'm learning things all the time. And I think that probably is my personal success story. But in terms of clients, I've had clients that have improved relationships with their spouse. I've had people who have found new relationships. I have helped people achieve new careers. I've got a lady who has gone back to college, studied to do something totally different, and has set up her own business, and that's flourishing. So there's lots of stories, and I think it's the little magic things that you hear about. I had a friend who, she was really struggling with her business. She'd got really behind with her accounts, and we cleared out her desk and we cleared out all her sort of paperwork because she just got piles of bills and she'd not really sorted them out. So she spent time doing that, putting that all together. And then all of a sudden she got 3 checks from people that had owed her money for like the last 3 months. She'd not chased them up, and the bills just came in. So yeah, I get stories and emails from people like that all the time, which is just lovely.
Yeah, those are great stories. I would assume that like in banking, every file has its own DNA. And for you, there's no one's alike. I mean, every situation is different. And I'm sure you learn from each client something new.
Yeah, you do. And it's everyone's home's different. Everyone's different. And what everyone wants is different. And I think we all, if you ask someone, what do you want from life? I want more money and, to be happy and healthy. But actually, when you come down to, well, what really do you want? It's very different.
Yes, it is. So what do you find most rewarding about being a Feng Shui consultant and Reiki expert?
I really like the fact that I can help people and pass on the knowledge I've learned and the things that I have discovered on my journey. And it's just really nice to hear people's stories and to support people, and then people come back and something's happened and something's shifted, and then they're on to the next thing. And that excitement as they kind of feel that they are more supported by their home and their energy, and then they it's watching them grow. And I think that's my favorite thing about it.
Lovely. So what would you say to the skeptic that's listening to this?
I would say if you're living in a space, it doesn't matter how big the space is, and you've got things around you, Feng Shui is happening whether you want to acknowledge it or not. And it's for everyone to find what resonates with them best. But I would say to the skeptic, if you just clear one area, just one small area, it can be your junk drawer, it could be a corner of the kitchen counter, your desk, your work bag, and then just see how that feels.
So what is your SOS? What is something that people who are listening or watching can take away today that they can do right away to make a difference in their world?
We kind of covered some of it, but it's 3 steps. So as I said earlier, the front door of your home is where that energy and opportunity is coming in. So if what I always say to people is have a little look at what is right outside your front door. Do you have an old, dirty doormat? Is this where you let boxes pile up? What obstacles have you got that's stopping the energy coming into your home? So every morning I come down the stairs and the first thing I do is I let the dog out of my house through the front door, and I open the front door and I open it fully, even when it's really cold. And I've got snow at the moment, so it is cold. But I open the door just for a few moments, and my neighbours are used to me now. I will say, good morning, the positive energy. Thank you for coming into my home. You don't have to do that. You can just open the door. I like to talk to the positive energy in the mornings, but it's each to their own. So I just open the front door just for a few moments and it's just letting that fresh energy come in. And then it's making sure that has the opportunity throughout the day to circulate around your house. So opening those internal doors, particularly the ones that maybe you don't go in the rooms very often, but opening the internal doors. The exception to that being, we just touched on this, is bathrooms. Bathrooms in Feng Shui drain energy. If you think about the bathroom, it's where we go to wash ourselves, we use the toilet, it's waste, it's disposal. So that will drain the energy. So if you can keep the bathroom doors closed, and in the summer, I can't always because my dog likes to go and lie on the cold tile floor. But if you can keep the bathroom doors closed as much as possible and keep the toilet lid down, and if you've got plugs that you can leave down in drains, that's ideal, but just keeping those doors closed. So allowing that energy to circulate around. And then at the end of the day, the negative energy and anything unblocked that's been released will leave your home through the back door. So just opening the back door at the end of the day for a few moments and then just letting that energy out. If you only have one door, and I mean, I appreciate that not every house has a front and a back door. If you only have one door, it's opening the front door in the morning, letting the energy circulate, and then opening that door up again at the end of the day. But you just want to make sure that the doors can open fully and there's nothing really obstructing them for the energy coming in.
Great tips. Is there anything else that you would like to share that we didn't cover today?
The only thing I'd really like to reiterate is I appreciate that having like a Feng Shui analysis is an investment in terms of money and time. So it really, if you want to shift the energy or kind of just feel what the energy feels like to shift, really the two boring things are the physical cleaning, the energetic cleaning, and the decluttering. And, that anyone can do that. And I think it's really important to also remember that everything we're surrounded with impacts us, and the things that you're walking past, the things that you're using, that energy that is impacting your energy. And also just be kind to yourself with it, because we didn't end up with all this stuff in a weekend. We've spent months and months, years accumulating all these belongings.
True. And someone says we spend all these years accumulating only to spend the next few years getting rid of.
Absolutely. Or looking after them or moving them around or cleaning them. So yeah, it's I think it's that I think is, and also being very responsible about how we actually do move on from things. I really try and recycle or consign, give things to people that I think they might want, not just putting it straight into the landfill. And there's loads of really good options online. If you look at, where can I donate, whatever. Yeah.
So Karen, where can people find you if they want to?
I have a website which is called thegrateful.energy.com, and I'm also on Instagram. And my Instagram, there's lots of tips and helpful sort of advice. And I do try and answer questions on Instagram. My Instagram handle, I think it's called, is graceful.energy.
And I will put those in the description in the podcast so that people will have those as well, and how to find you. So I want to thank you, Karen, for one, accepting my message on Instagram, and two, for chatting with me today on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I learned a lot, and I was making a few Post-it notes of my own things I can start to do before I reach out to you for a deeper dive. But thank you so much for being on. I know that this is an area, our home environment, which is so important because we do spend time in it, whether alone or with other people, and it's a sacred space.
Thank you so much, Susie. And it was really nice of you to reach out, and it's been really lovely sharing my journey, my story with you. And if anyone has got any questions, if you do message me on Instagram, I do try and answer as much as possible.
Sounds great. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Well, friends, sadly, that's all the time we have today. Thank you for listening or watching SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. And thank you, Karen, for joining me today. This episode was just a very interesting conversation on Feng Shui and using it in your house, and how you can do this remotely with Karen or in person if you're close by. You can find little areas to shift your energy, starting with decluttering and moving things around and shifting the energy in your space. And so I hope you've enjoyed this conversation and you'll stay tuned for the next one. Just a reminder on how you can support this podcast. You can like, share, and subscribe. You can send me a review or a question, and your question might be answered in an upcoming podcast. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also, if you like, you can be added to my email newsletter. They're really short emails, and they offer lots of good tips on all different things. And I'm happy to include you, so send me your email address. And certainly, if you're interested in coaching, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about how we can work together. So until next time, take care, and I hope our paths cross again.